I swear, nothing could have prepared me for the way my graduation party went down. We were crammed into our tiny Ohio living room, balloons hanging so low they kept hitting Uncle Dave's bald head, my mom's famous mystery lasagna on the table, and that mix of family chatter and bad country music in the background. I was still riding the high from walking across the stage that morning. Cap, gown, the whole deal. Then my Aunt Lisa flew in from New York. She's the cool aunt, works in some marketing firm on Madison Avenue, wears designer sneakers, and always smells like fancy perfume you can't pronounce. She walked in with that big city energy, hugging me so hard I could barely breathe. We were halfway through cake when she leaned in across the table, grinning like she'd been holding on to a juicy secret all year. "So, how's the MacBook I sent you? Perfect for college, right?" The fork literally froze halfway to my mouth. "What MacBook?" I laughed, thinking maybe she was mixing me up with one of my cousins. Her smile faltered. Not like a little slip, but like someone pulled the plug on it completely. "The MacBook. I shipped it 3 months ago, and there was a little something extra inside." I looked over at Mom and Dad. Mom's face went pale, like she'd just seen a ghost. Dad cleared his throat and reached for his beer. "Oh, Lisa, maybe it's still in transit," Mom said too quickly. "You know how shipping is these days." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Because I tracked it. It was delivered. Signed for." She put her phone on the table, screen glowing with the tracking page. My heart dropped when I saw the date. March 14th. That was around the time our budget kitchen makeover suddenly happened. New stainless steel toaster, blender, and a fancy coffee maker Mom insisted she found on sale. "Wait," I said slowly, looking between them. "You mean it was delivered here?" Mom forced a smile. "Sweetie, let's not make a scene." Lisa's voice cut through her words like a knife. "Where? Is it?" The air went heavy. Even the country music in the background suddenly felt like it was too loud. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. Mom pushed her chair back, the legs scraping against the floor. "Lisa, can we talk about this later? Maybe in the kitchen?" But Aunt Lisa didn't move. We're talking about it right here. Because my niece doesn't seem to know she was sent a $2,000 laptop and a card with some cash. "Cash?" I repeated, my voice cracking. Lisa's eyes flicked to me. "Yeah, $500. I thought you could use it for dorm stuff. Bedding, maybe a mini fridge. You know, college life." My chest tightened. $500 would have covered half my freshman meal plan. My brain was trying to process the words, but my eyes were glued to Mom, who wouldn't meet my gaze. Dad suddenly found the label on his beer bottle very interesting. "That's a lot of money to just disappear," I said slowly. Dad finally spoke, his tone sharp. "Your aunt doesn't know how we handle things in this house. Maybe we didn't think you needed another expensive gadget to distract you from your studies." Lisa scoffed. "Handle things? You mean stealing from your own kid?" "Hey!" Mom's voice shot up an octave. "Don't throw around words like that. We used it for something the whole family benefits from." And there it was, the kitchen makeover. My stomach dropped again. So, the toaster, the coffee machine, the blender. I counted them off on my fingers. Mom's lips tightened into a thin line. "Those are investments in our home." Lisa's jaw clenched. "It wasn't your money to invest." The room felt smaller, hotter. Even my younger cousin, who'd been glued to his Nintendo Switch in the corner, had looked up. The smell of lasagna suddenly made me queasy. "You didn't even tell me," I said, my voice shaking. "You just decided I didn't need it? That's not your call." Dad's eyes flashed. "We're your parents. Everything in this house is our call." Lisa leaned toward them, her voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "She's 18. She's about to be living on her own. And you just taught her that her hard work doesn't matter." Nobody said a word. The only sound was the clock ticking on the wall, each tick hammering the fact that something between us had just cracked. Dad slammed his beer down on the table so hard that foam spilled over the side. Enough of this. Lisa, you don't get to come in here once a year and tell us how to run our family. Lisa didn't even flinch. Run your family? I'm talking about basic decency. You stole from her and you're trying to spin it like some kind of noble sacrifice. Mom stood up, crossing her arms. We didn't steal. We reallocated the gift. And it's not like she can't use our old laptop for school. I turned to her, my voice rising despite the lump in my throat. Mom, your old laptop has keys missing and takes 20 minutes to load Google. Do you hear yourself? Lisa's hand landed gently on my shoulder, steadying me. You worked so hard to get into that scholarship program. I wanted you to start college prepared. Instead, you're dealing with this nonsense. Dad leaned forward, his tone turning colder. Maybe if you didn't always spoil her, she'd learn some real-world values. Lisa's eyes narrowed. Real-world values like lying to your kid's face? Pocketing a gift meant for her? That's the lesson you want her to carry into adulthood? The tension was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. My uncle, who had been quietly shoving cake in his mouth to avoid the drama, finally muttered, "Yikes," under his breath. I looked at Mom, searching for any sign of guilt or regret. But all I saw was stubborn pride. Why didn't you just tell me? Why pretend it never came? Mom's voice dropped to that icy tone she used when she was done talking. Because we knew you'd overreact, and clearly we were right. That hit like a punch. My throat burned and I could feel my face getting hot. Lisa, however, was done playing nice. You know what? We're going to settle this right now. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and started scrolling. I still have the delivery receipt and the signature. She turned the screen toward me. My eyes widened. It was Mom's handwriting. Clear as day. March 14th, 3:17 p.m. Signed for by her. The room went silent except for the faint sound of the fridge humming. Everyone at the table was looking at her. Even my little cousin whispered, "Busted." Mom opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. For the first time, she looked like she didn't have a script ready. Lisa didn't waste a second. She turned the phone toward the rest of the table so everyone could see. Look familiar to anyone? Because unless my niece's signature looks exactly like her mom's, we've got a problem. Aunt Karen gasped so loudly you'd think she'd just found out the Kardashians were moving in next door. Uncle Dave muttered, "Oh, damn," and shoved another forkful of cake in his mouth like he was watching live TV. Mom's face flushed crimson. Lisa, this is not your business. It became my business the second you stole from my niece, Lisa snapped. Her voice was sharp enough to slice through the thick, awkward air. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. So you signed for it. You opened it. You took the laptop and the money. Mom's chin lifted like she was about to justify a parking ticket. We used it for the family. That's not stealing. Stop calling it that, Lisa barked. It wasn't your gift to use, and you didn't even have the decency to tell her. You let her think I forgot about her graduation. That last line hit me like a sucker punch. Yeah, that's what hurt the most. I'd spent weeks wondering why Lisa hadn't sent a card or called on my birthday in March, chalking it up to her busy schedule. Meanwhile, my parents were sipping coffee every morning from a machine paid for with her money. Something inside me snapped. I stood up so fast, my chair screeched across the floor. You don't get to decide that for me. You don't get to take something that was mine and then act like you're doing me a favor. I'm not a little kid you can just lie to anymore. Dad's voice rose, matching mine. Sit down. You're making a scene. Lisa crossed her arms. No, what you two did is the scene. She's just finally calling you out for it. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From adrenaline. I pulled out my phone, tapped record, and said loud enough for the whole room to hear, Mom, tell everyone what you did with my MacBook and the $500 Aunt Lisa sent me. She froze, eyes darting between me, the phone, and the sea of relatives staring at her. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I would, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. If you can justify it, you can say it out loud. Gasps, whispers, and the distinct sound of my cousin whispering, "This is better than Netflix," filled the room. Mom's lips trembled, but no words came out. Finally, she blurted, "Fine. We sold the laptop. We used the money to pay for the kitchen stuff. And yes, we took the cash. Happy now?" The room erupted in whispers. Aunt Karen shook her head like she was watching a slow-motion car crash. Uncle Dave muttered something about crossing a line, and my cousin actually put down his Nintendo Switch. That's how you know things got serious. Lisa's jaw was so tight I thought she might crack a tooth. "You sold it?" "That wasn't yours to sell." Dad jumped in, voice booming. "We did what was best for the family. End of story." "No," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "End of story is me packing my bags." That got everyone's attention. Mom's eyes went wide. "Excuse me?" "I'm moving out," I said, standing straighter than I'd ever stood in my life. "You don't get to lie to me, steal from me, and then expect me to just sit here smiling over lasagna like nothing happened." Dad barked a laugh, the kind that's more insult than humor. "And where exactly do you think you're going?" Lisa didn't miss a beat. "She's coming with me. I've got a guest room and a spare key, and unlike some people, I actually respect her." Mom's voice cracked. "You can't just take her." "She's 18, Lisa shot back. "She can go wherever she wants. And after today, I can't imagine she wants to be here." My hands were still shaking, but now it was from the rush of finally saying what I'd been holding in for years. "I'm done feeling like my life isn't mine. You've crossed the line too many times, and this was it." Dad looked like he wanted to argue, but Lisa stepped between us. "Don't even try to guilt her. You're lucky I don't get the police involved." The silence after that was heavy, broken only by the hum of the fridge and the faint creak of the floor as I walked to my room. I started shoving clothes into a duffel bag, my heart pounding, but for the first time that day, it wasn't from anger. It was relief. By the time I came back out, Lisa had her car keys in hand. Mom's eyes were red, but she didn't say a word. Dad just stared at the floor. I didn't even look back when we walked out the door. The drive to the airport was a blur. Just the hum of Lisa's SUV, the smell of her peppermint gum, and my duffel bag in the back seat. She didn't push me to talk, just kept one hand on the wheel and the other loosely draped over the armrest like she was silently saying, "You're safe now." We flew out that same night. By the time the plane touched down at JFK, the skyline was glowing like something out of a movie. My chest felt lighter, like I'd left 100 pounds of drama back in Ohio. Lisa's apartment in Brooklyn was small but bright, with big windows and a view of the city lights. The first thing she did was hand me a wrapped box with a smirk. "Before you ask, no, your mom didn't sign for this one." Inside was a brand new MacBook Pro. My throat tightened, but this time it wasn't from anger. "I can't accept this after everything." "Yes, you can," she interrupted, "because this one's staying with you, and I want you to know I'll always have your back." For the first time in weeks, I let myself smile without forcing it. We spent the next few days setting up my college accounts, buying dorm essentials, and exploring the city. I landed a part-time remote job doing social media work, something my old, barely functioning laptop could never have handled. But it wasn't just about the MacBook. It was about finally having control over my own life. Waking up without that constant knot in my stomach. Not feeling like my choices could be vetoed for my own good. Of course, the texts from my parents started rolling in after day 2. "You embarrassed us in front of the whole family. You've ruined your relationship with us. Hope you're happy living off your aunt." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I finally realized I didn't owe them a defense. Now, 2 months later, I'm starting my freshman year in a city I've always dreamed about, with a fresh start and people who actually respect me. I still don't know if I'll ever forgive my parents. Maybe I will someday. Maybe not. But I know one thing for sure. I won't let anyone decide my life for me again. So, was I wrong for walking out and cutting contact? Or was it the only way to finally protect myself?